Welcome to The Explainer. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling like you totally missed the mark? Today, we're diving deep into a foundational text that offers some absolutely rock-solid, timeless tools to boost your influence and really transform your everyday relationships. If you want to understand the psychology behind why people say yes and pick up 3 practical communication tips along the way, you are in exactly the right place.
But first, I want you to picture this. It's a bitterly cold winter night in New York City. Despite the freezing temperatures, 2,500 desperate adults have absolutely jammed themselves into the grand ballroom of the Hotel Pennsylvania. By 7:30, every single seat is taken. By 8, hundreds more are standing room only, totally exhausted after a long day of work just to be in that room. This incredible turnout really proves one thing. There is a massive, deep-seated human hunger for learning how to connect and build better relationships.
Okay, here's the roadmap for our journey today. First, the hunger for connection. Second, changing your core perspective. Third, 3 practical communication tips. And fourth, making those habits stick.
Let's start with Section 1, the hunger for connection.
You have to remember, this happened right smack in the middle of the Great Depression. The people crowding into that hotel weren't just looking for some quick magic trick. They were actually lured in by this pretty conservative 1936 newspaper ad. These were executives, employers, high-earning professionals. They were actively seeking an ultra-practical course in effective speaking and influencing people in the business world because, they realized that having technical skills was really only half the battle. The real secret to thriving, especially when times are tough, was mastering human relations.
And that massive, undeniable hunger led directly to Dale Carnegie's legendary teachings. He basically took decades of observation, adult education surveys, and real-world testing and compiled the whole shebang into How to Win Friends and Influence People. Today, we're going to distill its absolute core lessons so you can start applying them right away.
Moving right along to Section 2, change your core perspective.
So before we can jump into specific tactics, we really have to make a fundamental shift in how we think. To show you what I mean, let's look at this brilliant quote from the great wartime leader Lloyd George. When he was asked how he managed to stay in power while other leaders were forgotten, he used this great fishing analogy. He said, "I don't bait the hook with strawberries and cream. Rather, I dangle a worm." It sounds ridiculously simple, right? But it perfectly highlights how kind of childish it is to go around talking about what we want. Look, of course you're interested in what you want, but absolutely no one else is. To influence others, you literally have to talk about what they want.
The text shares this hilarious little story about the famous writer Ralph Waldo Emerson that hits the nail on the head. Emerson and his son were trying to get a calf into a barn, and they made the classic mistake of only thinking about what they wanted. So Emerson is pushing with all his might, his son is pulling, and they're getting absolutely nowhere. Naturally, the calf stiffens its legs and stubbornly refuses to budge. Then, the Irish housemaid sees what's going on. She doesn't push or pull, she simply puts her finger into the calf's mouth, lets the calf smoothly suck her finger, and calmly guides him right into the barn. She thought about what the calf wanted. It's a funny mental image for sure, but the crucial takeaway is that every action is driven by what the other party desires. To see how this actually looks in the business world, check out this comparison. Over on the left is a real letter from a radio executive that Carnegie critiques. It kicks off with, "The blank company desires to retain its position." Just think about that for a second. Who cares what your company desires? The person reading that is worried about their own mortgage, their own health, their own problems. The ideal approach, which you see on the right, is entirely audience-centered. You have to see things from the other person's angle. Seriously. If you take just this one single concept away from this explainer, it'll completely revolutionize the way you communicate. Let's dive into Section 3, 3 practical communication tips. This is the real payoff. Here's our mini-map for this section. Number 1, smile. Number 2, be a good listener. And number 3, get the yes, yes response. Let's break these down. Tip number 1, smile. Okay, I know it sounds like a massive cliche, but it is deeply psychological. The text tells the story of a New York stockbroker who realized he was constantly walking around being critical and sour, so he decided to flip the script. He started greeting his wife, the elevator operator, the doorman, and his colleagues on the exchange floor with a big, genuine smile. And guess what? Everybody started smiling back. Grievances were handled way more easily. He literally stated that these smiles were bringing him many dollars every day. A real, genuine smile essentially tells the other person, "Hey, I like you. You make me happy. I'm genuinely glad to see you." Tip number 2, be a good listener.
So many of us try to win people over by doing all the talking. The text brutally describes those self-centered communicators on the left as bores intoxicated with their own egos. Ouch, right? If you want people to actively avoid you, just talk incessantly about yourself and interrupt them all the time. But on the flip side, the empathetic listener on the right understands a really profound truth. Very often, an irritated customer, a dissatisfied employee, or a hurt friend doesn't actually want your advice. They just want a sympathetic ear. They literally just need an audience so they can unburden themselves.
And honestly, even the greatest leaders need this. Think about Abraham Lincoln. During the darkest, most stressful hours of the Civil War, he invited an old friend from Illinois all the way down to Washington. Lincoln talked for hours and hours, weighing the pros and cons of issuing a proclamation to free the slaves. He read letters aloud, he analyzed arguments, and after hours of doing pretty much all the talking himself, Lincoln shook his friend's hand, thanked him, and sent him home without ever asking for a single piece of advice. He just needed a friendly, sympathetic listener to clarify his own thoughts. If that strategy worked for Abraham Lincoln, it's going to work for the people in your life. Now, as we gear up for our third tip, I want to ask you a quick question. Think about the last disagreement you had. What is the single most difficult handicap to overcome in an argument? Just take a second and really think about it.
The answer is the no response. Based on Professor Overstreet's theory highlighted in the text, when a person says no, all their pride of personality kicks in and demands that they remain consistent with themselves. Their entire organism, glandular, nervous, muscular, gathers itself into this condition of total rejection. It's an actual physical withdrawal. Once that no is out there, it takes a tremendous amount of effort to reverse it.
And that brings us to tip number 3. Get the yes, yes response immediately. You might know this as the Socratic method. Instead of starting off by discussing the areas where you disagree, you start by emphasizing the things you absolutely agree on. You ask gentle questions that the other person is forced to answer with yes. This actually sets their psychological processes moving in a forward, affirmative, accepting direction. It's kind of like a billiard ball moving across a table. Once it gets going in one direction, it's incredibly hard to deflect. So win an armful of yeses right at the outset, and you'll smoothly guide them exactly where you want them to go.
Finally, Section 4. Making the habits stick. Because look, just knowing these tips isn't going to magically change anything. Carnegie points out that reading these concepts is easy, but actually applying them when you're super frustrated, that's incredibly hard. To combat this, the text shares the habit of a really important Wall Street bank president. He kept a little engagement book, and he dedicated every single Saturday evening to reviewing his entire week. He'd sit down and ask himself, what mistakes did I make? What did I do right? How can I improve? Carnegie suggests we treat these principles not just as an interesting read, but as an actual working handbook for daily life. And he offers one last totally brilliant piece of advice to force real behavioral change. Make a lively game out of it. Tell your partner, your kid, or a coworker that you'll literally hand them $1 every single time they catch you violating one of these principles. Put your money where your mouth is. So my final provocative question to you is, who are you going to give $1 to today when they catch you talking about yourself instead of listening or forgetting to smile? Commit to the game and just watch how your relationships transform. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.